Our next storyteller is a storyteller and an author from Northampton who has a story about something that is very near and dear to me, making sure that all of our neighbors have access to this healthy and delicious food that we are growing here in the valley and beyond. Please welcome Chaya Grossberg.
So I'm sitting behind the grow food table at the Northampton Farmers Market, and it's a hot day. I have an ice pack in my lap, and we have spray bottles on the table to keep us cool. And there's a basket of market tokens in the middle of the table that are being passed out to people who get SNAP and who are waiting in line. And a woman approaches me to ask, how do I use HIP benefits at the market? So my role as the SNAP HIP ambassador is to explain to people how to use SNAP and HIP at the market. And I tell her that she'll get an extra $40 per month to use on produce at the market. And she just lights up with excitement. Her eyes are so happy. She just looks almost shocked, like, wow, I'm getting an extra $40 every month to spend on produce at the farmer's market. It never even occurred to her that that could be a thing. And it reminds me of when I first started getting food stamps when I was 21. I had had a health crisis and a kind of like a near-death type experience. I was on a lot of pharmaceuticals and bedridden for over a year. So actually getting food stamps was kind of the last thing on my mind. I was kind of also not even sure if I would survive the experience. And my parents had supported me up until then. So for me, getting food stamps was actually pretty much a positive thing overall because it made me feel less reliant on them and it just was cool. But I grew up, so no one in my family of my generation or my parents' generation had, as adults, had struggled financially or been on food stamps. And while my parents grew up poor, I didn't. And I was raised in New York City. I went to the most competitive high school in the city. I was amongst very high achievers and people who went on to get very high-paying jobs. And I started out kind of like them. So it was expected that I would be financially well off or self-sufficient at the very least. But after I had this health crisis in my early 20s, my life trajectory and life path and financial trajectory completely changed. And I became very focused on writing, meditation, spirituality, and things that came to me during that experience that felt very purposeful, but weren't necessarily big money makers. Like I said, I was pretty good with getting food stamps, except that I felt embarrassed. And I would feel embarrassed at the farmer's market when I stood in that line because it's right in the middle of the market and everyone knows what that line is for. And I would feel embarrassed when I was at a grocery store, especially if I was with a friend or someone I liked. I would often rush to finish getting whatever I was getting and get to the cash register before the person I was with so that maybe they wouldn't see me how I was paying. And then I would hold my EBT card kind of close to my hand and swipe it really quick and then put it away. And I even felt embarrassed, like, to have the cashier know how I was paying. I just had this idea that people thought that getting food stamps means that you're not working hard or something. But this woman at the market just didn't seem to have any of those hang-ups. She seemed to just be happy about it. And when I was sitting there on the weeks that I worked as a SNAP ambassador, I would watch the people coming through the line. A lot of them I knew, a lot of them I didn't know, but I was just amazed at how many people were coming through that line, and also the diversity of people coming through that line, and how many of them were people that I admired, the ones I knew, people I really respected, and people who were just incredible artists, musicians. A lot of the musicians at the market would be in that line. A lot of the farmers and vendors at the market would be in that line. Some of the people who who work at Grow Food Northampton were also getting their extra tokens each week. And it started to change how I was perceiving myself as someone getting food stamps. And on the weeks where I wasn't working there, I would still come to the farmer's market and often sit in the middle of the market after I got my produce and maybe a hot meal, and listening to the music or chatting with friends or maybe just people watching again. And I was aware of how this program to give people on EBT more benefits at the farmer's market draws so many more people to the farmer's market and such a more diverse crowd of people that wouldn't be there otherwise, like people that wouldn't be able to afford to buy produce at the farmer's market if they weren't getting these extra benefits. And I thought about how, like, whether somebody is a doctor or a poet or a part-time caregiver or disabled and unable to make an income, or an artist, musician who doesn't have enough money for all of their expenses, that it doesn't tell you who they are or everything they're doing with their life. For myself, like when somebody asks me what I do, I often feel the same way that I do at the grocery store. Like I want to hide, I don't want to have to answer the question, I don't want to be judged. For the past couple decades, I've been professionally supporting people who are harmed by psychiatry like I was. I wrote a book about it. I'm often told by people that my writing has changed or even saved their life. And I just finished the first draft of my first novel. One other thing about food stamps and the extra benefits at the market is that they really support the farmers a lot, as well as the people receiving them. And food stamps in general support not only the local economy, local food producers, but also the farmers. So the farmers market season is starting to come to an end, and I'm again sitting behind the Grow Food table, and a man approaches me asking how he can use his HIP benefits if he only has $1 left on his EBT card for the month. So I tell him that if the vendors are willing, they might let him swipe it over and over again so that he can get his extra benefits. And a lot of them are willing to, believe it or not. But it's a cold day now, and I have a hot water bottle in my lap. I'm wearing a scarf and a hat and a coat, and it's one of the last markets of the season. And I realize that I no longer feel embarrassed when I stand in that line, and I no longer feel as embarrassed at the grocery store. That something in me over this season has shifted. And I still go to the market every week, but I have this newfound acceptance of myself and appreciation of this community who helped me get there. Thanks.